just the story of Nito and Priscilla and Velka. It is also a set of symbols, a shared grave, if you will, where the different tombs of the different characters have been laid out, and we're coming up to one of those right now. So here we have a giant falling from the world above, attempting to protect this tomb. This is a symbol of Gwyn, the father of the person in the tomb behind. And here we have Gwyndolin's tomb being looked over by the Dark Moon Goddess, his mother and his sister, Velka. And this is actually Gwyndolin's tomb. Now, for those who have played the game, you might be a bit surprised as you have interacted with Gwendolyn before, but the great thing about the undead is you can kill them multiple times and they just keep coming back. The Dark Moon Seance Ring. This ring is granted to adherents of Gwendolyn, Dark Moon Deity and lastborn of Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight. Grants additional magic attunement slots. The Dark Sun Gwendolyn is the only remaining deity in Analondo. His followers are few, but their tasks are of vital importance. So there we have it, the Dark Moon Seance Ring. And this ring explains to us exactly what we are seeing here in this corridor. The giant that falls from the sky is Gwyn, Gwendolyn being his lastborn. The Dark Moon connecting Gwendolyn to Priscilla. Priscilla's statue is standing here over his body as she holds his sister Velka. So the nice thing about this is there's been a few family portraits that we've seen along the way. This is one that is occurring explicitly in front of us with the item that tells us that this is a family portrait sitting right here. So Gwendolyn is known as the Dark Moon Deity as well as the Dark Sun. The Dark Sun seems to be his title, but then when his mother becomes missing in action after the fall of Ulasil, he inherits the role as the Dark Moon Deity, though he doesn't inherit the powers that come along with being the Dark Moon Deity, which we will discuss further on in the Catacombs. And of course, now that we have Gwendolyn, we have him being acknowledged as the Dark Sun, we can recall the Demon Titanite. The Dark Sun inherits the joy of family. That we'll be talking about much later. And speaking of Ulasil, coming up here we have a scene depicting that city. Here we have the valiant father across from the kindly mother and the naive child. This represents Menace and Priscilla in Ulasil. The two of them do come together and they do finally have a child and a family, and that child is called Dusk, and we will be meeting her later. And this is her tomb, and that is why behind here we will find the miracle that represented the peace of Ulasil. Tranquil walk of peace. Outland miracle foreign to the way of white slows all walking within affected areas. This miracle is normally used to flee as it slows walking, but does not affect attacks, but nevertheless defines peace perfectly. So this is the miracle we saw being cast by these stone knights in Ulasil, and this is the miracle of Priscilla. Her attempt to to enforce peace upon Lordran. And there we have it. Trusty Patches always gets his man. So let's go and see what Trusty Patches has to say for himself.
I slipped and flipped that leavings. It didn't cause you any trouble, by chance? Are you certain? Well, that's a fine shame. I'm truly sorry. Really? But wait now. You didn't actually fall down. Well, why didn't you tell me sooner? All's well that ends well. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not above it all, I swear. I'm Trusty Patches, your one and only. I know. This should make up for it.
And this gift from Patches here is a sick burn. We have been read by Trusty Patches here. By giving us this gift, he is calling us a monster. If we think about what humanity actually is, which is the remains of a fellow human, he's giving it to us so that we can either smash it within our hands to get extra vitality, or maybe even burn it in a fire somewhere. And if you think that's a bit of a harsh judgment from Trusty Patches, wait till you see what he gives us next time. There we just got the skull lantern that the necromancers carry with them, that hold the flame that keep the skeletons alive. Notice that it is a head, and notice that it has black hair, long black hair. It's meant to represent their beard, but can also be seen as representing Velka, who is known as a black-haired witch. The Skull Lantern. Skull Lantern of the Catacombs Necromancer droops from his long bearded locks. This lantern alights the tomb of the giants, Nito's light-devouring domain of death. Also serves as a fire damage strike weapon. And so, by the fact that it does fire damage, is connected to the idea that it is actually holding a flame within it. It is a portable bonfire. And in here we have another symbol of a tomb. So like Dusk's tomb, this is purely a symbol. This is not where this character is buried. In this room we have two mother with child statues, meaning that this character had two different wives and two different children to them. Notice back here that the candles here has 3 candles lit. This is only one of 2 places where this occurs in the catacombs, And that is because this is the symbolic tomb of Gwyn. One of these mothers represents the Witch of Isolith and the Firstborn. The other mother represents Priscilla and Gwyndolin. Here we find a mother and a child being desperately clung to. And even though this man looks desperate, he is meant to be a proud knight. And the reason we see this configuration is because this represents Havel the Rock. And in this last room, there is no mother or child or father. This is the room of the firstborn of Gwyn, who cared only for war and therefore never had a family. And here we have the Great Scythe, the iconic weapon of Priscilla. This is the weapon that she wields when we meet her in game, and is one of the strongest symbols of Priscilla in this place. That really tells us that Priscilla was strongly connected here. The Great Scythe, weapon with a long curved blade, converted from a wheat harvesting tool. The magnificent sharp curved blade instills fear in opponents. Perhaps it is their survival instinct at work. And the Great Scythe means a few things. Firstly, it is telling us what Priscilla did down here in the Catacombs. She harvested the humanity of the dead, so that harvest could then be fed back into the flame and allow life to continue in Lordran. And it also represents Priscilla becoming a god. It is placed underneath the statue of the Valiant Father here, as it was a gift from Nito. Nito gave Priscilla part of his Lord's soul, and we'll be discussing that a bit later. And now coming through this area and up here, I notice hiding in the shadows here is a Titanite demon, a symbol of menace. Now if we look back here, notice that these pillars have the same grass reliefs that we saw in the old church in the woods. This is another collection of symbols of menace, but why is it here? We can see why it's here just once I clear out these skeletons blocking our way. So down here in this pit, notice this raised coffin. Notice that surrounding the base of the coffin, that has been separated from all the others, is the same grass relief that we found in the old church in the woods, a symbol of menace. This here is Menace's coffin, and if we fell down the two holes here, we would fall onto a podium where there is a black knight waiting for us, and that black knight wields an axe, the chosen weapon of Menace, and it is separate to the other tombs and raised because Menace became a very important character to the people of Lordran before he had his name stricken from the record. So wherever we find Menace, Velka, the woman that loved him so desperately, is never too far away. Now let's check out this coffin here. Notice the prompt, nestle in coffin. Not lie in coffin, not jump in coffin, not enter coffin, but nestle in coffin. This coffin is familiar to the narrator of Dark Souls. This is Velka's coffin. And very fittingly, Velka's coffin is loomed over by a symbol of Menace, the Titanite demon, just as Menace loomed over her life and caused her to commit all number of sins. So I completely messed up the fight with the Titanite Demon, and I have to go back to the surface to get some more arrows. Fortunately, this allows us to explore a couple of pieces of lore above that we'll now be just dealing with through a series of jump cuts. Here we are in front of the Undead Parish, and in front of the Undead Parish we find the halberd, a symbol of Priscilla, connecting her to this place. Now the halberds and the scythes are all part of the same family weapon, but they act slightly differently and they also mean slightly different things, which we will be discussing later. So while we're here with Andre of Astora, let's have a quick look at the weapons that he carries. So he carries the axes, being a symbol of menace, but importantly down here with the shields, he carries the Caduceus shield and the Tower shield. The Tower shield representing Priscilla, and the Caduceus shield representing the slaying of a Caduceus by Arturius the Abyss Walker, and the creation of Calf and Framp. And Andre of Astora is, of course, from Astora, so these shields actually are part of the story of Astora. So let's see what Petrus of Thoroland has to say about Rhea of Thoroland.
Oh, hello. My guests have finally arrived. I will be departing with them shortly. So, I'm afraid I will be saying goodbye soon. It was a pleasure. Oh, hello. Miracles, I presume? Yes, I know. Rhea is the youngest daughter of the good house of Thoroland. Those young knights are her old schoolmates, but I'm not sure what to make of them. I'm afraid they may be a bad influence.
So here we have Petrus of Thoroland, not quite sure what to make of Rhea's companions.
Come again.
Notice how he notes that both of them are knights. That's important and will come up later. But here what we're seeing is Seath the Scaleless's reaction to his two grandchildren. He's not quite sure what to make of either of them. Velka is obsessed with the dark, something that Seath the Scaleless does not approve of, and Gwendolyn is obsessed with the sunlight and obsessed with Gwyn, something else Seath the Scaleless does not approve of. And all this complicates his plan. Priscilla is part of Seath the Scaleless's plan. That's why she is important. And when she ends up with two grandchildren to two different fathers, Seath the Scaleless feels like his power is slipping, and Priscilla is an aspect of Seath the Scaleless's power. And there we finally have it. And never forget the prophecy of the Titanite demon. The dark sun inherits the joy of family. Ice, ice, ice. And behind the symbol of menace we find the Eye of Death, that dropped from the basilisk that we found in Astora, Velka's city, where she kept Menace imprisoned. The Eye of Death, the dreadful eyes of death, spread disaster across neighbouring worlds. Phantoms lured in the host world may end up victims, allowing the Eyes of Death to multiply and leading to further proliferation of Bane. So it's important to remember that the basilisks were a symbol of Velka's children, but they were also a symbol of Menace's children, and Menace loved his children, even if it looked like he abandoned them when he left for New Londo.